daily. Locations in Trenton, Signal Mountain, and Ringgold. Go get Guthrie's. It's always good. And I'm Snorri Sheen, Chief Meteorologist, Pastor 4.
Radio 92.7.
Listen to that. That's the sound of power and the call of the open road. That's the sound of the newly designed 2019 Indian Chieftain Limited. Yeah, Indian. It's more than a bike. It's an experience and an American icon. The place to find it, Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga, along with their entire new 2019 line. The open road is calling. Answer the call. Go to Indian Motorcycle of Chattanooga. Just look for the sign on 153 and Amnicola. Indian Motorcycle, the true American original.
Join We've Got You Covered with Scott Schrader every Saturday from 10 to 11 on Nooga Radio. From finance to fixtures, we discuss everything you need to know about buying or owning a home, the pitfalls, the perks, and everything in between. Saturday mornings, 10 to 11. Right here on Nooga Radio.
If you want to discover the real hope for your life through inspirational music, relevant messages, and testimonies from others who have already found hope, then we encourage you to visit the second annual My Hope Conference, October 7th through 9th at Hickson First Baptist Church. Free admission and childcare is provided for kids up to pre-K, while those in kindergarten through 5th grade will attend the Kids Hope Rally. For more info, visit myhopeconference.com or call Hickson First Baptist Church at 423-877-2467.
92.7 Nooga Radio.
Good morning, beautiful people here in the city of Chattanooga. It's your girl Marie Mott with the Marie Mott Show. Y'all know what it is. I'm taking it from the streets to City Hall, from City Hall to the mayor's office. Can't leave out the police department. Y'all know what it is. From the Valley Low to the mountaintop, giving you guys a bird's eye view to what's going on here in the city of Chattanooga. Good morning, my loves. Good morning. And I'm always glad that I wake up and I have an opportunity to roll out of bed, get dressed, get myself together, shower, put on my clothes, and get up to the radio station to talk to you guys about what's going on here in the city of Chattanooga. I don't take it lightly that I have an opportunity not only to just talk about things that are important to me, but I have the opportunity to have people come on the show and give you guys a rundown, sometimes on Chattanooga history, on initiatives or things that are going on in the city of Chattanooga. And I have a visitor who's been up here once, and he's back, and everybody can't come up here. Why? Because my space is very, very valuable, and I really want people up here in the space with me who are doing positive initiatives or trying to impact and make change here in the city of Chattanooga. We have a legend. You may not know him, but if you guys probably for the last month and a half have heard me talking about Helen Burns Sharp, TIFs and pilots initiatives, I wouldn't know who she was if it wasn't for this man right here, Mr. Tom Kunish. Oh man, Tom, welcome back. Welcome back.
Nice to be back.
Oh man, I'm so grateful that you decided to come back and talk to us. And you're going to talk to us about what true historic preservation is. I know the last time you were up here, you were talking about Native American history from like the Muskogee tribe and breaking that down. And people were going absolutely crazy because we really never hear, especially like in Lincoln Park, I've never heard about the historical content from Native Americans. And it even has been probably with this year alone, like with Kevin Muhammad posting a picture of the Negro Baseball League that was in Lincoln Park. I never knew until Tiffany Rankins from Lincoln Park like actually took me on the Erlanger property, like where the bathhouse is. We didn't get dragged off. We did get dragged off by Erlanger security, but actually showed me where the bathhouse was, where there's an Olympic-sized swimming pool. Still is right there. Never been demolished. It's just been occupied.
Yes. Occupied territory.
Occupied territory.
And I wish more African Americans and Native Americans would realize that it is occupied territory and that it should be African American. So that leads me off to, when you mention all these things, the mayor, the consul, the police department and stuff, you ought to include in your morning wrap about the history department that Chattanooga doesn't have. Chattanooga has no history department, has no history museum, It has an aquarium for all these exotic species from all over the world, seahorses and butterflies that are from other places, but we don't have a museum of our own history. We have baseball diamond, we have football stadium, we have all sorts of restaurants and condos and everything else going up, but we don't have our history in that we can go in one place. And of course, it doesn't have to be situated in one place, but we have an aquarium that's in one place.
Okay.
We have churches, lots of churches in places.
Mm-hmm.
We have a city council and county commission. We have courts and stuff that are in one place. No history.
No history. And you know what? I've never thought about that. But why would you if it's not a situation? And that's something interesting, that a lot of places where you go, there is this one location. If it's only just one, this one location where you can go and you can see artifacts, where you can go and see. And I love things like that.
And we used to have one.
Really?
Yeah, right downtown. A big building. Wasn't that big, but it was right downtown, just 2 blocks from the aquarium. And now the aquarium didn't exist, but now we mention everything in relationship to the aquarium. It was just 2 blocks away, and it had different floors where you could walk through history. And now there was supposed to be $9 million dedicated to that. What's the Avondale Youth and Rec Center costing?
$7 million, I believe.
Yeah.
A $7 million price tag.
There was $9 million put away for that history museum, and it's gone.
Where did it go?
Nobody. I don't know. Eric Atkins has been asking that question for years.
$9
million.
$9 million
gone.
for historical preservation and content that somehow dissipates and vanishes into thin air.
It's supposed to be right next to the aquarium.
And nobody from council to mayor, nobody has ever asked what happened to that.
Well, people have asked now.
Mm-hmm.
Eric wrote this piece in the Chattanooga, and so it might be interesting for you to ask, for all of us, to ask our city council people, where is the Chattanooga History Museum? Where is it going to be? Like, what I really wanted to talk about today was, where are the sites in Chattanooga that we should be preserving? So, African-American sites, Native American sites. Now, the oldest human site in Chattanooga is right there off of Amnicola Highway. It's called Chickamauga Mound, and that is 1,500 years old. Okay, it's the first human construct that we have above ground that we know is preserved. After that, nothing. And Native African Americans came here, presumably if you say Chattanooga, on the south side of the river, in 1838 after the Cherokee removal. And what monuments do we have to African Americans here? Do they contribute anything?
You wouldn't think so.
Eric was just telling me this morning that African Americans, the colored troops that are buried at the National Cemetery, built the National Cemetery.
What?
And there is no marker there, no sign that says that this space was built by the colored troops.
So here it is, and I have both sets of my grandparents are buried in National Cemetery.
Whoa.
So I go visit. I drive by there. I go visit there. You're telling me I'm walking into where my family on both sides are buried. Grandmothers and grandfathers are buried in those cemeteries. And that was an initiative started by colored troops.
It was an initiative started by white people that use blacks.
Oh,
okay. Now, have you
Okay.
seen those markers, the white marble markers there with USCT?
Mm-hmm.
And so you know what it means.
United States Colored Troops?
Yes.
What? I never knew that.
Over there on the right side, after you go take the right and you go around the offices and stuff, and then you take the first left, and all that area over to the right, USCT is United States Colored Troops.
Man. And
blowing your mind here?
You are. I'm speechless because, and this is kind of what, this is definitely one of the reasons why it's so frustrating to see that we have five historical neighborhoods, and none of those are African American at all.
Yep, that's where I was going.
And you can look in the newspaper, I believe it's 1887, where the Chattanooga Times Free Press calls this city a city of Negroes.
No.
Was it 1887?
Well, I have so many dates in my head that I don't want to pin myself on one of them. But Citico, City of Negroes.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the area just on the east side of what's currently Erlanger.
Mm-hmm.
And that was inhabited and built by African Americans. And it was going to be a separate city with its own government adjacent to a suburb. I mean, because at that time, Chattanooga was really just a small town, had a dirt main street, had the railroad stuff and a couple of businesses down there. Well, couple. But that area over there was far enough away from downtown that it was its own suburb and was going to be a city of Negroes. Was, in fact, today on the land titles that you see there, the area is still called Citico City.
Citico City.
Yep.
And
that's not preserved. That is Lincoln Park. I mean, Lincoln Park was really the park, the recreation area for African Americans in this area. And it was the park of Citico City. And Citico was the Muskogee site, the mound that's been destroyed. It should be rebuilt on the other side of the creek, and that extended on both sides of the river. So what's called Heritage Landing is really Native American heritage land. All those condominiums and townhomes up on the north side of the river. Scraped clean overnight. All Native American grave.
And so this is important.
This is history.
This is important. So one of the things that we have to be careful, because I say all the time that words have power. Gentrification is a sugar-coated way of saying the eradication of culture, the eradication of the erasure of history. It is the ethnic cleansing of an area. Gentrification is a sweet, or beautification is a sweet way of saying ethnic cleansing.
James Baldwin, ever played James Baldwin's comment on that? Urban renewal is Negro removal. And that's, we were just talking about Lincoln Park. Anthony Byrd, Councilman Anthony Byrd had didn't know it was really, but it was a Coffee with Byrd meeting this past Saturday. And,
at Ingalls Stadium.
And, in one of the little rooms there, not out on the field where we could, fans and everybody cheering and yelling. It was just a little room, and there were about 20 of us. And he was talking about, it's coming. Property is changing hands. And the question that I have today here is, in our concern for historic preservation and remembering things, remembering why your grandparents are buried in that cemetery and who built that cemetery, it's good to know our history. If you don't know where your people came from, there's no way that you're going to know where they're going. You're going to forget everything. And then really you have no connection, no ties, no anchor in the city.
And you have, and it's nothing left. I mean, one of the things that I appreciated very much about having both of my grandmothers were born during the Great Depression. And so both of them made it to their 70s. And so they had seen such a great shift and changing of hands and property, and could tell me about being young ladies like in the roaring 40s and young adults in the 50s, and seeing how When you walk down in downtown, a lot of that was African American owned business. A lot of that was African American areas. This is where people worked. That's where people played. That's where people enjoyed. That's where people. My uncle ran tips.
Ran what?
So it's kind of like neighborhood gambling.
Uh-huh.
Ran tips.
Ran tips.
Ran tips. They partied. I mean, so I could. It was always interesting sitting down with them and them going over like Chattanooga history. But then even as a little girl or as a teenager, then going to a young adult, you drive downtown. And for a good portion of my life, downtown was pretty much dead, with the exception of like the Discovery Museum and the aquarium. That was pretty much all that was kind of happening downtown. And now you see like these businesses popping up everywhere, this super development coming and popping up everywhere. But you don't, the thing that you don't see is like, I go back to those stories that I heard, and I don't see hardly any of the people who look like me with those thriving businesses, or being the developers, right, or being anybody who's been included in that process of restoring this city, virtually at all. And to me, the bigger question is, especially you ran against Anthony Byrd, and you know how. Now I'm probably playing devil's advocate, but how can you make a determination about what gets saved in an area without really talking to the people who have the keys to the history and the true intent of that area? Because for me, and we kind of talked about it the last time, I believe, when I heard the first time I heard, because I knew where Lincoln Park was because my grandmother used to live there. And I heard, the councilman is giving $2 million for the green space. I'm like, what are these people arguing about? Take the $2 million and run. And then, but I believe that because I didn't know the historical content of that neighborhood, right? I just knew it was a neighborhood where Black people lived, and it's changing. I'm just like, take the $2 million. It's a good deal, and just leave it alone. And then you begin to understand that this was the place where we could play, and we could swim. The only place where not only we, but people from tri-state area would travel here, because they also didn't have spaces to play and to enjoy themselves because we were African Americans living in the South. And that shifts the dynamic of what I would want to save, or what I would expect to be saved. $2 million in my historical understanding of that space is not enough. It is making that the first of many, what should be the first of many historical Black neighborhoods, and preserving the content of that neighborhood.
Because completely. The park without the neighborhood will lose its meaning. You just preserve, you put 2 million or 6 million, it doesn't matter. You make it into, and this is what Mayor Burke says, you'll make it a world-class park, but that's going to raise the property values. People are going to sell. Black people are going to sell because white people are going to move in. Well, besides taxes, and also, when you've bought your house for $20,000 and somebody offers you $150, I had a guy come up. This was a couple months ago, in a big truck. Stopped in the middle of the street, left it running with a guy in the cab with him, walked up to my door, handed me his business card and said, "You want to sell your house?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, it's cash. You can take the cash and buy a nice place out in the country." I said, "What are you looking at? $225,000. And he said, "Yeah." Now, that was too quick. That was, too quick. So you're looking at 250, depending upon, of course, where you're going. That's more money than people ever see in one spot. And you can do wonderful things with that. And that's what we're being told is going to happen at Lincoln Park, is people are going to be offered buttloads of money, and people are going to take that money and developers are going to come in, convert an African American community into a essentially white bedroom community for Erlanger. So the question is, what Native American places do we have preserved around Chattanooga? What should be preserved, and what African American places do we have? ML King Boulevard's going. We have Bessie Smith Hall. We have, but the Strut, isn't the same as it used to be. We have Mary Walker's home, but very, very few people know about that. We have Pleasant Gardens and Beck Cemetery. Those are cemeteries, and few people go and visit them, really. But what else do we have to say that for 40% of Chattanooga's population, this is that group's history? We have Jack Little for Native American history, and because we have so few Native Americans here, we have 40% African Americans here. What kind of gathering can we get? What kind of political power can we make to assert historic preservation on behalf of African Americans, and to which I hope, trickles down to Native American preservation?
And that is definitely, and I kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday, it's not about political parties, it's about people. These are the questions that we really need to ask ourselves going into 2020 for this next election, because Burke is terming out. All of the city council persons, all their seats are going to be wide open. And if we are not asking these legitimate questions, and this is just what I feel as we kind of wrap up, God, this 20 minutes went by so fast, is that this is a do or die. Like, these next few years going into 2020 are going to be do or die situations. If we don't step up and really look into the future and ignite one another to fight back against what's going on, we might as well hang it up.
Yeah, what you have is, I think a lot of politicians, let me just say that Burke's a good mayor. Burke has an agenda. Burke pushes that agenda. He gets his agenda. And what we end up, you can disagree or agree, whatever, but with the council people, we have mostly cheerleaders.
Cheerleaders on the city council. Oh, tough. Oh, man. Thank you, guys.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
A man was found by police bleeding from a gunshot wound to his torso. The victim telling police he was sitting outside when he was approached by several students and was shot. The victim rushed to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Detectives on the case trying to find the culprit. Charges have been filed after 5 students were hospitalized at Brainerd High. A Brainerd student is reportedly expelled and charged with 4 counts of reckless endangerment. Reports say several students were hospitalized after ingesting